Did you ever see that movie Rashomon? Very famous Japanese movie about the rape and murder of a husband and wife in medieval, feudal Japan. The movie tells the story of this rape and murder from 6 different points of view until at the end of the movie, we don't really know what happened, but it's kind of a contemplation on the distortion of truth. Well, we've got a similar story unfolding right now in Macon, Georgia. Maybe not from 6 different points of view, but definitely from 2. This woman is accused of shooting a black person in the head for no reason whatsoever. She tells the story, and we know this much is true, that she had called the police several times, many times in the month or 2 prior to the shooting, saying groups of black people were throwing rocks at her house, threatening her, taunting her, attacking her. But every time the cops rolled around, the black people were nowhere to be seen. That's one version of the story. The other version is this woman is just a crazy old racist lady that likes to shoot black people for no reason whatsoever and then make up lies because the black people involved in the shooting, that is the friends of the guy who's in the hospital right now clinging to life, they said they didn't do anything. This woman was always accusing them of stuff for no reason whatsoever. And that's the only reason they shot this guy. Let's take a look at some of the video. Let's take a look at the story from the Daily Mail, which presents more fully the story of the black people didn't do anything to provoke this little old lady who can barely walk. Then let's take a look at a similar story, a story that I have called the worst story of all, and don't make the black kids angry.
The woman accused of shooting a 15-year-old in the head says she fired those shots in self-defense. Elizabeth Cannon says she opened fire when the boys started throwing rocks at her house and at her. Cannon spoke to Yvonne Thomas today to find out why she fired those shots.
At that moment, you want it to stop.
Elizabeth Cannon says boys threw rocks at her home on Bloomfield Drive for months.
We had some indication of the rock throwing at cars back as far as August and September.
But starting last Thursday,
this one and one other one is about as big as your hand.
Cannon says things got worse.
Each time they came by, it just escalated.
Cannon says the boys threw rocks at her home every day for 5 days in a row.
We didn't holler anything after them or anything else. We'd call the police and give them a description.
After she called Bibb deputies multiple times, Cannon says the boys kept coming back.
I didn't eat no supper, couldn't eat. Just very nervous, just felt terrorized.
But on Monday night,
this time they were throwing the rocks up towards the house, towards me and the house.
Cannon says she needed to protect herself.
I felt like they were might throw more rocks. And so then I just felt like I had no other choice.
Cannon says she pulled out her pistol and fired several shots. 15-year-old Vernon Marcus Jr. was shot in the head.
No, I didn't want to hit any in the head. I did not want to kill anybody. But if they wanted to get an arm or a leg or something, I just wanted all of this to stop. That's all we wanted.
In Macon,
we just wish they had stopped.
Frank and Lori, around 4 o'clock today, I spoke to Sheriff David Davis, and he said Cannon had called before to complain about those kids harassing her at her home. Now, he says this is a cautionary tale to everyone, that guns are not always the answer and that kids have to be mindful of the other person's reaction. Now, he says after they got that original complaint, that deputies went out to the neighborhood to try and figure out exactly what happened.
But by the time deputies get there, there's no evidence of any kind of wrongdoing, and the people who may have been involved earlier have since gone. It sort of limits us in what we can do.
Now, Sheriff Davis says if anyone feels like their life is in danger, they're entitled to use force, but he says in this case, it may have been excessive.
The Daily Mail is usually a pretty reliable source on what is really happening with black-on-white crime and violence in this country. But this one, they've taken kind of a different tact, and they're really a lot more sympathetic to the story of the guy who was shot and his friends, who basically said they didn't do Nothing. I'll give you a minute to read this if you're so inclined. And then when this one's over, why don't we take a look at that story from Middletown, Ohio. It's the same story. The story begins on Thanksgiving a couple of years ago, and the woman comes home to find a whole bunch of black people running out of her house carrying her flat screen TV and the rest of her belongings. She called the cops. As soon as she called the cops, her life was one living hell of threats and harassment against her by the same group of black people. We're going to hear a little bit about that in this video coming up. How they came around to her backyard. They shot her house with BB guns. They threw rocks. They threw lit flares in her house. They tried to set the house on fire. She kept calling the cops. Cops were very, at best, indifferent to her story. We're actually going to hear the 911 call she made the night this group of black people burned her house down.
Kill me and my kids, that we're all dying, we're cop callers.
A mother scared for her family's life calls police for help. Within hours, her home gets burned down.
I cry every time I look at the house, but I think about my kids and how they weren't in there and are safe.
Tonight, that Middletown woman and her 2 children are without a home, but they're thankful to be alive. Good evening to you. I'm Cherie Palello.
And I'm Mike Dardis. That fire happened on Roosevelt Avenue shortly after 1 o'clock this morning. WLWT News 5's Karen Johnson leading the way right now. She spoke with the family.
Well, the house here on Roosevelt Boulevard nearly gutted. The victim believes a group of teens who she says has been terrorizing the neighborhood tried to kill her and her 2 children.
I'm gonna get you out of here.
Jennifer Chitwood in tears as she hugs her mother-in-law, overwhelmed by all she lost in this fire.
All of my clothes, all of my baby's things, my daughter's things. They have no beds, no clothes, food, everything's gone. I have nothing at all.
She does still have her children, 5-year-old Grace and 3-month-old Chase. Had they been home when the fire started early this morning, Jennifer fears she could have lost them too.
I have been thanking God all night. I can't imagine if we was in that house.
Jennifer had left her home out of fear after a run-in with a group of neighborhood teens.
Last night they all came and swarmed my house and was shooting my house with pellet guns, and they were throwing flares, like lit flares at my house, telling me they were gonna burn my house, kill me and my kids, that we're all dying, we're cop callers.
Retaliation, she says, stemming from other incidents where she's called the cops on the teenagers.
They bust my windows out, they destroyed my house, and the last time I called the police, they pulled my daughter's window out and climbed in while she was in there. And I called the police, and their brother or somebody went to jail, and that's what they're retaliating about.
Now an arson investigation is underway. Police are questioning neighbors as Jennifer and her family struggle with the thought of how they could have been trapped in this last night.
That's my heart. That's everything to me. My kids, my grandkids, they're everything to me.
And Jennifer did call the cops after the disturbance last night. A report was filed, and in it clearly states that she fears for her life and feels the group will come back and eventually harm her, but no arrests have been made.
Handled a frightened caller in Middletown who said teens were trying to kick in her door.
This happened hours before someone set Jennifer Saylor's house on fire on Tuesday night. At times, the 911 dispatcher seems to get impatient with Saylor. 9 on Your Side's Jason Law has more on that terror-stricken call.
Middletown 911, dispatcher Crank, where is your emergency?
Just hours before police say someone torched her house, Jennifer Saylor called 911 from inside her home after she said teenagers began throwing bricks and kicking in her door.
Screaming and hollering, fighting for days. Hey, I can't hear you. Ma'am, you need to stop yelling. I can't hear you.
Busted my door and trying to kick my door in.
What is your address? What is your address?
Roosevelt Boulevard.
Okay, are they...
They're threatening to shoot my house and everything.
Okay, who is it?
Some kids I called the police on for breaking into my house, and they've been trying to...
Are they kicking at your door? Answer my questions. Are they there right now?
They're kicking at my door. Come now.
Ma'am, I can't help. Ma'am, you have to stop screaming. I can't help you until you stop screaming.
The dispatcher seems to grow frustrated and eventually tells Saylor she has to hang up the phone.
Open my house. I can't open my doors.
Don't open the door then. Stay in your house. Easy. Stay in your house till we get there. Okay?
I can't get out anyways.
Stay in your house. Stay in your house. until we get there.
I'm not hanging up the phone until
I have to hang up the phone, ma'am. I have to. I cannot stay on the phone with you.
And that was Jason Law reporting. Saylor later told 9 on Your Side she was really, really scared. She said, "I've never been that scared in my life. I thought they were going to come in and kill me and my kids." Police have charged one 17-year-old for the arson.
I don't know why the cops in Middletown, Ohio were so indifferent to the pleas of this woman for months on end, that her life was in danger, the lives of her children were in danger. I don't know why she didn't move. I don't know the answer to any of those questions other than her house burned down and a bunch of black people set it on fire. Nobody gave a damn. I still think I don't think anybody's been convicted for that crime to this day. But in the meantime, we're left with Macon, Georgia. I'll let you decide. That little old lady who can barely walk. She a pistol-packing mama going around shooting black people for no reason whatsoever? Or is there a different explanation? The one she was telling to the police for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, but they couldn't seem to get the manpower together to stop the people who were threatening the lives of her and her family. I'll let you figure that out, and if you find out the answer, would you do me a favor and please let me know? But in the meantime, if you're down in Macon, Georgia, if you're up in Middletown, Ohio, I wouldn't advise making the black kids angry.